Let's get things started in the Monetiser track. The first talk is about questions you should be asking your DSP, and I'd like to invite to the stage Ben from Moloco. Come on up and introduce yourself, Ben.
First off, it's good to be here. Helsinki is slightly cooler than the rest of Europe, which is a very nice change. So I think this is a different type of title that we chose. And obviously, it's slightly provocative, but really what we're trying to do, despite that title, we are not going to give you a list of questions that you're going to go out and ask your DSPs. That's not what's going to happen today. What we are trying to do today is help you think about how machine learning-driven DSPs operate, how you can up-level your thinking, and with that, hopefully, the quality of your questions will improve. So that's just a bit of a caveat. And before we do that, I'm going to give you shortly a few words about me, and more importantly, about Moloco, which will help justify why I'm here and why we are here to talk about this topic. I joined this app performance marketing world a bit over 10 years ago. Started in a company called SponsorPay, which then turned into Fiber and is now part of Digital Turbine. And then I spent 7 years at AppsFlyer, which is a leading mobile measurement partner. And very recently, in November of last year, I joined Moloco. And Moloco is the leading performance DSP in the world. And what we do is we help games and apps find and acquire new users in a profitable way. And I'll show you a few numbers about us. 12 offices around the world. We're more than 500 employees, and the vast majority of them are much smarter than me. They are engineers, they're machine learning engineers and data scientists, and that's powering our capabilities and our growth. But this is not about Moloco. But this talk is about understanding DSPs and how they operate and modern performance marketing. And one point to address here is just the scale and the capabilities of DSPs. For us, it basically means that we have access to every single user with a smartphone out there, and that is the power that a DSP provides, and I think it's important to note. All right. So I already caveated the talk from the start. I think there's no such thing as a silver bullet, as you know. Those live in games sometimes. But for us today, we are really going to focus on your thinking process and understanding machine learning powered DSPs. So we said, what are the questions to ask? I'm going to start with what not to ask, right? So we learned in life that there are no such thing as bad questions. It's probably true, but today I'm going to state that some of the questions are bad to ask a DSP because it will lead you down the wrong path of thinking, and it won't allow you to grow your business in the way of asking other questions that you should be asking. Okay, so here are some examples of questions that we hear and that we think show the wrong type of thinking process. what is an ideal monthly budget and spend? I think first off, the terminology spend to use with the performance DSP is probably wrong, because what we think, the way we think about it is that you're investing into your business, and this is a performance channel. And the idea of a performance channel is that it delivers returns on your investment. So there's concepts like ROAS, ROAS, return on ad spend, and this is just a completely different way of looking at advertising. So spend is wrong, budgets should be, by definition, then if it's an investment, it should be limitless and it should grow with your return. So what you should be worried about is cash flow and payback periods, which are all valid questions and things to think about, but actually this is an investment opportunity, and it delivers returns, and you keep on growing your business that way. Another question, what's your reach in terms of number of users? As I showed you earlier, any DSP is plugged into all of the exchanges that are out there. There is essentially infinite reach. Every single human with a smartphone is reachable by a modern DSP. There's a nuance to that question, which might be not a bad question, which is how many bids per second can you process? So processing power is relevant, that's fine to understand the technical capabilities of actually turning this potential user pool into actually customers, processing the bids, and then being able to deliver a bid against those. But that's just the nuance on that. Another question, what publishers do you advertise on? So this is something we hear constantly. And once more, it means that the concept of machine learning, user-targeted machine learning performance is not fully understood, because publishers are one data point, but they are not. It's not the approach that a modern state-of-the-art DSP will take. So you're going after specific users, and you don't care in which publisher this user is actually in. What is the maximum potential of my app? In the same way, you have infinite possibilities. Sky is the limit. There are all of these users out there which are playing and buying in multiple apps. So there needs to be a process of I am spending, I'm investing, and then I'm iterating and changing constantly to max out, and then build up and have new possibilities of growth. So potential is infinite. So those are the fundamental concepts that are important to understand, and basically, just approach a DSP with a new, just a new way of thinking, and not think in the old categories of publishers, audience targeting, and reach. It's just a different ball game, and I think you're all able to adapt that way of thinking. And now we discussed what you shouldn't do, and I think what we should be doing now is like changing gears. And I mentioned that I'm not going to share with you exact questions, but I'm sharing thinking frameworks and and giving you pointers as to what makes sense, how to think about it, what to know. And here we go. First off, there's the concept of understanding inputs and outputs. I think what you need to do when you start working with the DSP is understand what data points do they actually need. How do they optimize? And how do they get hold of that? So understanding that. And then once you receive outputs, there's also the making sure that you have a conversation with them about how to interpret these type of outputs. Vitaly and I, we spoke earlier, and remind me what you said about inputs and outputs? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I'll summarize. Sorry that we didn't follow Dave's advice about the microphone. I'll summarize. What Vitaly is saying is that there's not always a linear correlation between inputs and outputs. For example, what we see often is, going back to the question about publishers and where you're advertising, we often get asked, and our customers are analyzing and say, okay, we're seeing great results from these and these publishers. They're driving exceptional returns. Shouldn't we be targeting those more? And that is what Vitaly means by input and output aren't necessarily correlated. Just because a specific publisher or a certain exchange is doing extremely well for you, it doesn't mean that stopping targeting the other publishers and exchanges will yield better results and will help you grow. So just taking a new approach, discussing that with your DSP and understanding how they operate and how their models find you, the users, and help you grow is really key. Comparing apples to apples, it's got really complex out there. We have an ecosystem now where you have MMP measurement, you have Apple scan attribution, you have incrementality, and what that means is you need to understand the incentive structures of different companies and different players in the space, and you have to, unfortunately, or with the growth mindset that you have, you fortunately have the task of becoming an expert in measurement and really understanding deeply how things work, so that you can be the best manager of your investments and make wise investment decisions into the channels that are most profitable. But in order to do so, you really need to go deep. And this is something that your MMP, your DSP, and so on can help you upskill, and it's a really important thing to do. And with that process, your questions will become better that you ask your DSP and others. Another thing, really important, looking at the big long-term picture, a DSP, unlike other channels, often delivers users that mature much better than other channels. So you will have cohorts of users that a DSP delivers that over time ROAS increases, and taking a different yardstick when you look at the results of a DSP over a longer period is something that is highly advised. Otherwise, you might draw conclusions that are detrimental to your growth. When we talk about benchmarks, we get asked about benchmarks, and really important is understanding what are the KPIs that are actually relevant to you. And who are you comparing? Who is the party that is delivering those benchmarks to you? Who are they comparing you to? So comparing a casual game with an RPG game is something that will probably lead to wrong conclusions. And focusing on CPIs might be relevant for you, but in other cases, a day 30 ROAS might be the KPI that you actually should be comparing yourselves to your peer set. So really thinking about that deeply, having that conversation is important. And lastly, I want you to ignore everything I said, challenge everything I say, push back, and speak to different people, speak to other companies, speak to your peers out there, and take a mindset of testing and retesting and testing again, because there are plenty of opinions out there, but every app is unique and every channel is unique, and that combination makes it really difficult to trust anyone without actually having data to back things up. So that's, I think, really the most important lesson. So be curious, push back, and make sure that you make data-backed decisions. And that brings me to the end. Thank you so much.
We've probably got a, if anyone has a question, we can probably take a question or two before we move on to our next speaker. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to take the advantage of asking Ben a question while we've got him here? No? Oh, the end. Yes, good, thank you. Good spot.
I would love to hear maybe a slight bit more elaboration on the input-output aspect of, information, especially when hooking up, it into your own apps. Like, in which way does that help you target the audience that I wouldn't be aware of, for instance?
Right.
Yeah. So I think. So one point that I mentioned, and I can elaborate a little bit, is you will some of the data that you will receive from us, because in our case we're completely transparent. You'll see exactly which publisher, which exchange delivered which user to you, and then you will be able to see, okay, this is a profitable acquisition or not, and drawing the conclusion of, okay, this is a great publisher or this is a great exchange, I should be doubling down here, and please deny lists and only allow this specific combination of publisher and exchange, will most likely mean that you are getting fewer of these users that you so value and are profitable. So that having that open mindset and saying, okay, I'm going to let the machine do its magic and actually find users wherever they are, in whichever app exchange combination, will allow me to grow my business much better and in a profitable way, rather than trying to outsmart the machine, which it becomes increasingly impossible. But as I said, it's worth a test. If you disagree with that, push back and run an A/B test and see, okay, I want to see if I'm better than the machine, and then hopefully you'll have results and data to back it up.
Perfect, thank you. I think we'll have to leave it there. Thanks again. Another round of applause for Ben
from
Moloco. Thank you very much.